You are quietly mourning your own death while your heart is still beating. Your neglected reflection isn't just laziness. It is a silent neurochemical suicide. Society smells this decay instantly. Discover the ruthless alchemy to weaponize your flesh, hijack human psychology, and force reality to bow. There is a precise, terrifying fraction of a second that most of us will face, arriving unannounced in the cold stillness of dawn. It is not a sudden tragedy or a dramatic public failure, but a quiet, suffocating confrontation with the abyss. It is the exact moment you realize you have been mourning your own death while your heart is still beating. You stand before the bathroom mirror, the fluorescent light unforgiving, expecting to meet the fiery, unbroken spirit of your youth, the archetype of the conqueror you once promised yourself you would become. But the eyes staring back are vacant. The shoulders slump under the invisible weight of unspoken compromises. The physical vessel before you appears weathered, neglected, surrendered to the quiet, violent erosion of time. You are paralyzed by a profound, agonizing dissonance. The internal flame still screams of ambition, of untold potential, yet the external reality, the living monument of your daily choices, tells a story of silent defeat. This is not a crisis of vanity. It is the soul's absolute horror upon discovering that the world no longer reflects the God you feel inside. Before we descend further into the dark alchemy of how your physical reality dictates your psychological survival, I ask you to hit the subscribe button. By subscribing, you become the vital pulse that drives this channel to continue exposing the raw, uncomfortable truths of human psychology that polite society desperately wants to keep hidden. Sovereign Mindset welcomes you to the unmasking of the modern psyche. Let us strip away the psychological camouflage we so desperately cling to. Society, in its collective cowardice and desire to comfort the miserable, has constructed a pervasive and dangerous trap. We are fed a comforting poison encapsulated in the adage that inner beauty is all that matters, and the surface is mere vanity. How tightly we wrap ourselves in this moralistic blanket when we cross the threshold of midlife. We convince ourselves that to care for our physical appearance is superficial, a frivolous pursuit entirely unworthy of a mature, deep-thinking individual. We wear our bodily neglect as a twisted badge of honor, claiming we are too devoted to our careers, too sacrificial for our families, or too intellectually elevated to care about the drape of a fabric or the grooming of our flesh. I tell you now, as someone who has watched the brightest minds rot from the outside in, this dismissal of the physical self is never a sign of spiritual elevation. It is a highly sophisticated rationalization for laziness. It is the fragile ego's way of protecting itself from the agonizing truth that we have simply given up. When we abandon the temple of the body, we are not transcending the physical realm. We are admitting utter defeat to the relentless forces of entropy. To comprehend this tragedy, we must plunge into the visceral reality of psychological resonance. You are not a disembodied ghost haunting a biological machine. The dark, sprawling world of your unconscious and the tangible world of your physical reality are inextricably welded together, constantly devouring and recreating one another. There is no barrier between the cowardice you feel inside and the neglect you project outside. Your physical appearance is the outermost layer of your soul, the brutal, honest manifestation of your own self-worth. When the inner state of sovereign confidence aligns with the outer state of rigorous physical care, a terrifying harmony is achieved. When they are at odds, the psyche begins to tear itself apart. This friction is not merely theoretical. It is a violent neurochemical war waged within the biological mechanics of your own self-esteem. When you stand before that mirror, your brain ruthlessly juxtaposes two images: the objective, decaying reality in the glass, and your internalized, idealized self-image. When these images align, when you see a formidable, disciplined creature staring back, your brain registers a triumphant state of psychological congruence. It floods your system with dopamine and serotonin, the biological architecture of raw power and assertiveness. You literally embody the archetype of the sovereign. But when there is a jarring, undeniable discrepancy, when the vibrant inner conqueror is trapped in a rotting, half-disheveled cage, your brain interprets this as a mortal threat to your identity. It retaliates by flooding your blood with cortisol. This silent internal conflict breeds a chronic, suffocating anxiety and a devastating loss of self-worth. You shrink, you hesitate, you become a victim. Therefore, we must violently discard the comforting lies. Your appearance is not a superficial coat of paint. It is the unrelenting map of your self-esteem, the silent language through which your unconscious either roars with vitality or whimpers in decay. If your flesh and bone are the silent language of your unconscious, then the armor you choose to drape over it dictates the exact terms of your daily psychological warfare. Every single morning, you participate in a deeply profound, often unconscious ritual that will fundamentally determine your mental posture for the next 16 hours. You stand before your closet and you make a choice. Society will tell you that this choice is merely functional, a simple matter of covering your skin to protect against the elements or to adhere to a basic office dress code. This is a tragic underestimation of human psychology. The garments you pull over your shoulders, the fabrics you allow to touch your skin, and the meticulousness with which you groom your face are not trivialities. They are the literal, physical boundaries of your self-respect. They are the psychological armor of the sovereign mind. There is a phenomenon deeply embedded in the human nervous system that dictates how we adopt the traits of the physical items we wear. When you surrender to the morning fatigue and pull on shapeless, worn-out clothing, when you decide that today you just cannot be bothered, you are not just making a concession to comfort. You are broadcasting a signal of defeat directly to your own brain. Your posture physically collapses to match the drape of the lazy fabric. Your speech becomes less articulate, your boundaries soften, and your tolerance for disrespect inevitably rises. You have dressed yourself as a subordinate, and your neurochemistry obediently follows suit, dampening your assertiveness and dulling your competitive edge. You become a background character in the narrative of your own life, entirely because you chose to inhabit the uniform of the invisible. Conversely, consider the ritual of deliberate, unapologetic presentation. When you take the time to groom the chaos from your face, when you slide into clothing that is structured, intentional, and commands space, an entirely different alchemy occurs. You are not dressing for the approval of the crowd. You are constructing an unassailable fortress for your own mind. The weight of a tailored jacket, the clean lines of a well-fitted shirt, the polished edge of a boot. These are not fashion statements. They are tactile, continuous reminders to your nervous system that you are a creature of order, discipline, and high value. Every time the fabric shifts against your skin, it forces you to stand taller. It demands that you speak with resonance. It fundamentally alters your internal monologue from one of doubt to one of absolute, terrifying certainty. We must entirely eradicate the notion that caring for one's physical presentation is an act of insecurity. Insecurity is hiding behind oversized, neglected garments, hoping the world will not notice your internal decay. True psychological dominance requires the bravery to be seen. It requires the courage to say, through your sheer physical presence that you believe you are worthy of taking up space. It is a daily, deliberate act of defiance against the gravity of aging, apathy, and the mundane. When you master your presentation, you stop walking into a room hoping to be accepted. Instead, you enter as a fully realized force of nature, a physical manifestation of order that forces the chaotic world to adjust its frequency to match yours. You become a walking, breathing testament to your own internal standards, effectively building an invisible psychological perimeter that weak, parasitic energies cannot penetrate. As you forge this physical armor to command your own psyche, you will inevitably collide with the unforgiving arena of human perception, where the world acts as a brutal, untamed mirror. We love to romanticize the human condition, pretending we are evolved, highly rational beings who possess the saint-like capacity to look past the physical surface and judge one another solely on the content of our character. This is the greatest, most pervasive lie of modern socialization. The devastating reality is that we are still deeply primal, visually driven creatures, hardwired by millions of years of evolution to make instantaneous, life or death calculations based entirely on physical appearance. Before you ever open your mouth to showcase your intellect, before you can demonstrate your kindness or your work ethic, the collective gaze of society has already scanned your physical vessel, categorized you, and decided exactly how much respect, opportunity, and power you are allowed to wield. When you present a neglected physical self to the world, you trigger an ancient, unconscious alarm in the minds of everyone you meet. People may smile at you politely, they may exchange pleasantries, but their limbic systems are silently screaming that you are a liability. When they see unkempt hair, slumped shoulders, poorly fitting clothes, and eyes devoid of spark, they do not see a hidden genius or a tired martyr. They see chaos. They see an individual who cannot even manage the fundamental borders of their own body, and they instinctively conclude that you cannot be trusted to manage anything of real consequence. Your ideas will be second-guessed. Your boundaries will be tested. You will be overlooked for promotions, ignored in social hierarchies, and treated with a subtle, patronizing pity that slowly corrodes your soul. The world will treat you as prey, not out of malice, but out of a ruthless biological instinct to marginalize weakness. You can spend your entire life weeping over the unfairness of this reality. You can write endless essays about how society should be kinder, deeper, and more understanding of your internal struggles. But the universe does not care about your outrage, and society will not rewrite its biological code to accommodate your laziness. The sovereign individual does not cry over the rules of the game. They weaponize them. When you understand the terrifying speed at which the human brain calculates value based on appearance, you hold the keys to manipulating reality itself. By aggressively optimizing your physical vessel and your aesthetic presentation, you hijack the psychological biases of the collective. This is the phenomenon of the halo effect, executed with deadly precision. When you look vibrant, strong, and impeccably put together, the minds of those around you automatically project a host of other positive traits onto you. They unconsciously assume you are more intelligent, more capable, more trustworthy, and more successful than you might actually be. Doors that were previously welded shut suddenly swing open with terrifying ease. People move out of your way. Conversations shift to center around your gravity. The very society that would have mercilessly trampled a neglected version of you will eagerly bow to the sovereign version of you, simply because your physical manifestation signals an undeniable, primal competence. You are no longer fighting upstream against a current of subtle disrespect. You have turned the brutal, judgmental nature of humanity into an updraft that carries you toward your ultimate ambitions. Realizing that the world is a mirror reflecting your own physical standards back at you is the exact catalyst that must drive you from quiet despair into violent, transformative action. The intellectual realization of your own decay is worthless if it does not immediately give birth to the grueling, unsympathetic labor required to reverse it. You cannot simply buy your way out of this abyss with expensive clothing or superficial grooming tricks. To truly anchor the sovereign mindset, you must go to war with your own biology. You must embark on the ruthless forging of the physical temple, an agonizing process of alchemy where sweat, resistance, and absolute dietary discipline are utilized to burn away the weakness that has colonized your flesh. The modern world has entirely sanitized the concept of physical training, reducing it to a vain pursuit of beach-ready aesthetics or a medically mandated chore to stave off heart disease. We have forgotten that physical exertion is, at its core, a spiritual and psychological crucible. When you step under a heavy barbell, when you push your lungs to the absolute brink on a desolate morning run, you are engaging in an intimate, brutal conversation with your own mortality. Your mind will scream at you to stop. It will manufacture 1,000 highly logical excuses as to why you should drop the weight, why you should sleep in, why you have done enough. In that precise moment, when the burning in your muscles threatens to overwhelm your sanity, you are granted a sacred opportunity. By choosing to push through the pain, by forcing your physical body to obey the iron will of your mind, you are actively slaughtering the inner victim. You are proving to yourself, in the most visceral language possible, that you are the master of your vessel. This process of physical breaking and rebuilding alters your neurochemistry in ways that no therapist or self-help book ever could. The discipline of the gym acts as a daily purge of chronic anxiety and depressive inertia. You are literally sweating out the cowardice. Furthermore, the ruthless curation of what you consume, the refusal to treat your body as a toxic landfill for processed comforts, requires a level of continuous, waking consciousness that sharpens the mind into a lethal instrument. Every time you reject the immediate gratification of garbage food in favor of clean, vital fuel, you are casting a vote for the sovereign self. You are reinforcing the belief that you are a high-performance machine, entirely undeserving of mediocrity. As the months of invisible, grinding effort accumulate, a terrifying metamorphosis takes place. The fat melts away to reveal the hard, unforgiving lines of a body built by consequence. The chest rises, the jawline sharpens, the shoulders widen, naturally adopting the posture of a conqueror without conscious effort. You begin to move through the physical world differently. There is a coiled, silent danger in your stride, a deep reservoir of physical capability that radiates outward. This is not about becoming a giant or a professional athlete. It is about reaching the absolute zenith of your own genetic potential. It is about the profound self-respect that can only be earned by suffering for your own elevation. When you have forged a body that can endure suffering, you develop an unshakable psychological resilience. The petty inconveniences of daily life, the stress of the boardroom, the inevitable conflicts of human relationships, they all shrink in magnitude when you know with absolute certainty that you have already conquered the most stubborn enemy of all, the weakness within your own flesh. When the hammer of discipline finally ceases its relentless striking against the anvil of your will, what emerges is not just a transformed body, but an entirely resurrected spirit. We have traversed the dark corridors of the mirror's brutal honesty, the tactical deployment of our outward armor, the manipulation of society's unforgiving gaze, and the agonizing physical crucible required to burn away the rot. Now, we arrive at the ultimate destination, the sovereign integration. This is the rare, magnificent summit of human existence, where the agonizing dissonance that once paralyzed you in the cold light of dawn is completely, finally eradicated. The internal God and the external vessel have fused into a single, terrifyingly cohesive entity. Imagine returning to that very same bathroom mirror. The fluorescent light has not changed, but the reality it reflects has been entirely rewritten. You look into your own eyes, and there is no hesitation, no dodging of your own gaze, no sickening wave of regret. The creature staring back at you is fully alive, vibrating with a quiet, lethal competence. The physical shell is no longer a cage of neglected compromises. It is a meticulously crafted weapon, an accurate and devastating reflection of your highest ambitions. Your mind and your body are finally speaking the exact same language. The profound peace that washes over you in this moment is not the cheap, fleeting happiness sold by modern consumerism. It is the deep, structural serenity of a king who has successfully defended his borders and brought absolute order to his kingdom. This integration fundamentally alters the way you interface with the external world. You no longer walk into a room trying to prove your worth, loudly demanding attention, or shrinking into the shadows to avoid judgment. True sovereignty is breathtakingly quiet. Because your physical presence now commands immediate primal respect, you are granted the luxury of silence. You listen more. You observe with the detached clarity of a predator. When you do speak, your words carry a heavy, undeniable gravitational pull, because everyone in the room instinctively knows that your actions match your rhetoric. You have become a living, breathing monolith of congruence. The anxiety that once plagued your interactions evaporates, replaced by a cold, thrilling certainty. You realize that you are no longer a passive participant in the theater of life, subject to the whims of society and the cruelty of time. You are the architect of your own reality, capable of bending circumstances to your will simply by the sheer force of your aligned presence. This is the ultimate conquest. By refusing to surrender your physical form to entropy, by rejecting the comforting lies of a mediocre society, you have reclaimed ownership of your entire existence. You have saved your own life. The journey of the sovereign mind is not a temporary phase or a seasonal diet. It is a permanent, lifelong commitment to absolute excellence in every dimension of your being. It demands everything you have, and in return, it gives you the world. Do not let another dawn break to find you mourning a life you are still living. Rise from the ashes of your own neglect. Forge the armor. Rebuild the temple. Align the inner fire with the outer reality, and step out into the world not as a victim of circumstance, but as the undeniable, unconquerable author of your own destiny. The profound journey from physical neglect to sovereign integration is not merely an exercise in superficial vanity. It is the ultimate act of self-mastery and psychological warfare. Your physical vessel, the clothing you deliberately choose, the meticulous grooming you maintain, and the resilient muscle you forge through grueling physical discipline, acts as the literal, unyielding perimeter of your self-respect. Society is a ruthless, primal mirror that constantly makes instantaneous, life or death calculations about your competence and value based almost entirely on your outward presentation. Rather than lamenting this brutal reality or hiding behind a facade of apathy, the sovereign individual actively weaponizes it. By purposefully constructing your daily physical armor and willingly submitting to the brutal alchemy of sweat, resistance training, and dietary discipline, you effectively hijack the ingrained unconscious biases of the world around you. You force reality to recognize and treat you as a high-value, competent force of nature. Ultimately, the relentless striking of discipline against the anvil of your own will burns away all internal cowardice and seamlessly fuses your highest ambitions with your external reality. You cease to be a passive victim of biological entropy and harsh societal judgment. Instead, you emerge as a living monolith of congruence, commanding silent, undeniable respect and moving through life with a lethal, quiet certainty. This is the absolute conquest, aligning your internal fire with your outer shell to reclaim total, unapologetic ownership of your existence. The mind and the body are not separate entities. They form a singular, brutal feedback loop. The way you present and physically condition your body is a direct, undeniable communication to both your own nervous system and the collective subconscious of society. Neglect breeds internal cowardice and external marginalization. Conversely, physical mastery and meticulous presentation forge an unbreakable psychological fortress, commanding immediate respect and effortlessly bending external circumstances to your will. Audit your armor. Tomorrow morning, stop dressing for comfort or invisibility. Discard the shapeless, worn-out garments that signal defeat. Wear clothing that fits immaculately, forces you to stand taller, and visually communicates that you are a creature of extreme discipline and high value. Embrace the crucible of sweat. Implement a rigorous, non-negotiable daily physical training routine. Treat it not as a medical chore, but as a daily mental purge. When your mind begs you to quit during a heavy lift or a grueling run, push through the pain. Use that exact moment to actively slaughter your inner victim. Curate your fuel. Stop treating your body as a landfill for processed comforts. Consume only high-performance, clean nutrition. Let your strict dietary boundaries serve as a continuous waking reminder that you refuse to accept mediocrity in any form. What is one specific change you can make tomorrow morning to upgrade your physical armor and signal a higher level of self-respect to the world? Please take a moment to share your perspective and goals in the comments section below so we can all learn and draw inspiration from each other's journeys. If this message resonated with you and you are ready to continue forging your absolute potential, please subscribe to the channel. Your support is the ultimate motivation that drives us to keep creating deep, transformative content to help you conquer your reality.